Hello and welcome everyone, my name is Maina, I'm joined by Nova,
Hello.
and today we're looking at the games coming out in July.
Pretty exciting.
The format for this video is a bit different than how we did it last time, so let us know if you like it. We're going to discuss a handful of the bigger releases that are coming out, and then I'm going to briefly mention some honorable mentions at the end. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's get started. First up is Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals. This game takes place 5 years after the events in the first game and sees you play as new character Riley, an environmental researcher who returns to her hometown of Kamina to investigate mysterious radio signals. Like the first title, this is a 2D narrative adventure game with supernatural undertones where you shape the story through dialogue choices. You will use the series' signature radio mechanic to solve puzzles, communicate with the supernatural, and even travel through time. The sequel promises to expand player agency and choice over the first title, and again will offer multiple endings so you can get a custom one tailored to your choices. Alright, so Oxenfree 2, I've got some bullet points here to keep us on track, so we don't ramble. So the first thing I want to say is that the devs state that the sequel story is standalone, so you don't have to play the first game to follow it. But if you have played the first game, because they both take place in the same setting, it does give you the broader context of the world, basically, which is great for me, because while I have played the first game, I do not remember anything.
Yeah, I don't really remember much because I watched you play it. I feel like it's on an island. I'm not sure. I feel like I remember a beach, but that's great. Like it's great that it's a standalone. Like it's not predicated on playing the first game to be able to enjoy this new one.
Yeah, and it makes sense because it's entirely new characters, so you can just dive right in. Yeah, so you were right. The first game does take place on an island because you're high school kids and you go on like a little field trip.
Right. Yeah.
So in this one, you play as people in their 30s, and the devs say they intend it to be a coming of age story for people in their 30s.
Okay.
So it's kind of about generations, becoming parents, growing into adulthood, I guess.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this plays into it, if there's subtext there, but there's a mysterious cult called Parentage.
Okay.
And they're trying to open new portals that will basically like break the space-time continuum, and you have to stop them.
That is very strange. That they're called Parentage, but you know.
Yeah, I don't get the connection.
I'm sure it ties in somehow. Yeah, that's nice. Like I like that it's people in their 30s and it's like their coming of age story, because everybody knows like people in their 20s still don't know what's happening. But that doesn't apply to us because we're ageless.
Oh yeah, that's true. Wait, cat girls are ageless?
You don't know how old I am. I have 9 lives.
Oh wait, so when you just die of old age, just
start a new one.
You just reborn. Okay, so cats.
That's my lore now. Get used to it.
Yeah, I guess that would let you live like full 9 lives. Interesting.
Better live them good. You don't even know what life I'm on.
Could be the last.
It could. I won't say.
I'll never tell. All right, so finally, a new feature for the sequel is that you, with your little walkie-talkie, you'll be able to start conversations with anybody from anywhere. They kind of likened it to the codec in Metal Gear Solid, where you can just call somebody up.
Oh, okay.
I think it's nice because it means in the first one you had to be traveling with somebody to kind of advance that relationship, and maybe you didn't get it to where you wanted it to be before you kind of like diverged in the story.
Right.
So in this one you can call somebody up and be like, hey, you never finished telling me about your sister or something.
Yeah, I wonder if it could also be used for like clues and stuff.
Oh yeah, a clue channel.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Maybe there's a codec on the back of the box that you have to call.
or maybe it's just like Grand Theft Auto 5, where you just call up and you're like, you want to hang out? Let's go golfing.
Cousin, let's go bowling. Next up is Exoprimal. This is an online team-based action game where you don exosuits and shoot swarms of dinosaurs. The game takes place in the year 2043, which is 3 years after mysterious vortexes appeared in the sky and unleashed a dinosaur outbreak across the globe. You play as Ace, a customizable exo fighter who crash lands on an island during a routine patrol mission at the beginning of the game. And there, you meet an advanced AI named Leviathan that forces you to participate in a nigh endless series of war games. Okay, so having said all of that, you might still be wondering, what is this game?
Yes.
As far as I know, it only has one game mode, Dino Survival, and you basically have 2 teams of 5 that are separated from each other, and you're both racing to complete objectives while you kill dinosaurs.
Okay.
There's certain special dinosaurs like gas neosaurs, sniper neosaurs.
Okay.
They're kind of like special infected, maybe from Left 4 Dead.
Right.
And there's also large dinosaurs like Triceratops or T-Rexes.
Like a Hulk.
Yeah, like the Hulk or the tank from.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you didn't actually fight the Hulk unless you downloaded a mod in Left 4 Dead. Okay.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
The other team of players, so they're all people, can pick up these things called Dominators, which lets them play as like a big dinosaur and transfer over to your side and hinder your progress. Okay. And the final objectives of this series of things can be PvE or PvP. So sometimes you'll team up with the other team and have to fight like a big dinosaur, or other times you're basically pushing your payloads into the same area and you'll basically be able to see each other and start shooting and killing each other, so it becomes a PvP match.
That sounds super chaotic.
Yeah. And also, apparently, the story progression, it kind of reminds me of the way I think Titanfall did it. Titanfall 1, you'll pick up lost data packets while you play the multiplayer modes that will slowly unravel the mysteries of the island. So okay. I think it will like unlock cutscenes and maybe a database.
Huh.
Okay, so it's a PvEVP game, basically. I've heard it, I think it's Gambit, a mode in Destiny. People said it's similar to that.
Okay.
So for people that want to just do the PvE and don't want to do PvP, they have added an option where you can say if you prefer one or the other. But they also said at some points during the story progression, you basically don't get a choice and it's kind of forced.
Right. I think I do remember seeing something about that where it was like, oh, that's nice that you can decide to not do PvP, but then it's like to progress, you have to do it. So that's kind of a bummer. But
yeah, I think I would have been more excited for just a straight Left 4 Dead type game with dinosaurs.
Yeah.
This one, it does seem like if you prefer one or the other, it is forcing you to play together.
Right.
As PvP or PvE players.
I do think the Dominator aspect is really interesting because wasn't it Left 4 Dead 2 where there was the online where someone could be the
you could
zombie.
be the tank.
Yeah.
I always liked when you were the tank at the top of the hospital because if you punch somebody, you could just knock them off the roof.
Punch them off.
Yeah, one shot, one kill. Bam.
Nice.
Also, so you're a human, but you are in an exosuit. It's kind of like a mech. So you can be an assault one, a tank one, or a support one. And then they also have rigs that you can apply. So like the examples that they gave was you can put a cannon, like a long range cannon, onto a melee fighter to kind of make up for that deficiency. Or you could put like a healing ability on a tank exosuit to make you even more tanky.
Okay, that's interesting. But they are definitely human inside the suit. They're not like a cyborg.
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
You customize your human so you get to see what they look like outside of the suit. But also I think I've seen when you lose the match, you kind of get devoured by dinosaurs. So you do have to deal with the fact that it's a human being eaten alive inside there.
Well, we've all seen Jurassic Park.
Yeah, we've seen enough dinosaur eaten.
Yeah.
But with these exosuits, you can change out of them at any point in the mission. So if you're like, oh, we need a tank to deal with this situation right now, and none of you brought a tank, well, you can just switch into the exosuit right then and there.
That's interesting. Like you don't have to like die and do any of that. Like you can just go into a menu and switch.
Yeah.
Huh.
It has like a temporary downtime where like when you switch, you jump out of your current suit and you're kind of like not in a suit briefly, and then you jump into the next one. So it seems like, I don't know if you can get eaten in that intermission time.
Right.
But you seem very vulnerable.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right. And I feel I should mention for the people that care about it, this is a $60 game. but it still has pre-order bonuses, which are cosmetic skins. It has a paid battle pass. It has cosmetic skins that you can buy directly. And with this Head Start kit, you can unlock suits prematurely. Otherwise, you do unlock suits as you level up in the game. Now, all that being said, it is coming to Game Pass day one, so you could just try it out there instead of paying all this money up front.
Yeah, might be worth checking out. See some cool dinosaurs and mechs all in one game. Maybe worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a convoluted story, but I like the concept of being in a mech and fighting dinosaurs. I've seen gameplay of it. It looks like you have pretty cool special abilities. I like that you can kind of customize, and like the melee mech has a really cool sword. But yeah, I don't know about being forced in the PvP.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the forced PvP, when I was looking at this game, just all I could think was, this game is bananas. The whole dinosaurs, space-time rift thing, and the mechs and all this stuff just coming together into one game. It was just crazy bananas, but it does seem like it could be really fun to play.
Yeah, it's a bit out there, so I think to get like a populated scene, it is a pretty steep price like upfront that they're trying to do, especially the way they're monetizing it. But I don't know, we already have Game Pass.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you'd be willing to give it a shot, because it does have forced PvP.
Yeah,
so
I don't love that, but
we'll see.
Yeah.
Next up is Jagged Alliance 3. This is a turn-based tactics game with light RPG elements. So this game series started way back in 1994, and while many consider Jagged Alliance 2 one of the best tactics games of all time, the series has had some poorly received titles over the years. But Jagged Alliance 3 is being handled by the capable Hamimon Games, the developers of the Tropico series, and they even brought in Ian Curry, who's the creator of Jagged Alliance 1 and 2, as a writer and advisor. The game is set in the fictitious nation of Grand Chien, a former French colony in West Africa, where the elected president has been kidnapped, and the president's family has hired you and your mercenaries to get him back and restore order to the country. Okay, so the way this game plays, it's similar to the old Jagged Alliance, I believe, where you have a strategic campaign map, where you focus on managing resources, assembling squads, and recruiting mercs, and you can kind of maneuver around the map. It's like a grid-based map. You can capture diamond mines for money, you can liberate villages and gain their loyalty, or you can take out enemy bases to kind of stop reinforcements. Now, whenever you get into combat, it will kind of zoom down into the tactical aspect, where there'll be like turn-based battles similar to XCOM. So you can stand, crouch, go prone, you can use cover, it has Overwatch, you can use action points per turn. It's all the XCOM elements basically. But the two different sides of the game kind of remind me of Total War games, where you have like the grand strategy and the overhead map where you move your units around, and then the actual tactical battles.
Okay.
Although obviously this is much smaller scale, because squads will be at most 5 mercenaries instead of, a whole army of people in Total War.
Okay, well, I don't really play a lot of strategy games, so if you like strategy games, maybe this sounds really awesome and compelling to you.
Well, what might be compelling to you is that there are 40 fully voiced mercs.
Ooh.
So each have their own stats, traits, perks, personalities, and more. They will also have their own interactions, so one of them might hate a merc that you've already hired and they will refuse to work for you. Or they might, you might have already hired their best friend, and if you put them both on the same mission, they'll have like a morale boost because they'll be super excited to be together. Okay.
I wonder if that affects also something like if the friend dies, do they change as well?
I don't know that, but yeah, I wonder if that'll be like a big morale shock to them.
Yeah.
If they'll start crying in the middle of the battle.
Oh, God.
Well, maybe not. So I will mention, I have seen complaints about how the mercs are written, because they're kind of like stereotypes. The style is kind of this 90s offbeat, edgy humor, and I've heard some people call it cringy, but I should mention that it seems tonally consistent with the old games. So if they're trying to appeal to old fans of the genre or the previous games, It's basically in line with that. So it might just not be for some people.
Right.
And I've also heard that the main story itself kind of takes itself seriously. So it kind of feels at odds when you have like these walking stereotypes and then like a super serious story.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, if you think about how the first game came out in 1994, there is quite a bit of difference in culture from that time. And I guess it's just up to you to decide if you like it or not.
Yeah, I think some fans are very happy.
Yeah.
And some newcomers, it may not bring in newcomers, basically. Well, the controversies don't stop there. I should mention that what they've done is they do not show hit percentage in the game.
Okay.
Which is kind of this modern addition that XCOM, I don't know if XCOM started it, but when people describe an XCOM type game, I think that's part of the expectation is when you go to shoot somebody, it tells you what your chances are of hitting them.
Right.
And they have removed that intentionally because they say they want combat to feel organic and not like a puzzle for you to solve.
Right.
So I kind of get that, but I think the kind of people that play these games are very numbers oriented, and they want to know like what works and what doesn't. And it can feel frustrating when you basically are taking actions, entering them into like a black box and not knowing how it's computing the result. It does tell you, it has a little pop-up and it tells you all the modifiers. Like if you're at a higher height, if you're close enough, or if you're stealth, like they don't see you. If you're shooting a part of their body that's not armored, it tells you all of that, but it just doesn't give you a percentage in the end. It's something that you might have to play and see for yourself.
Yeah.
All right, lastly, I will mention that you can play this game, apparently the whole campaign, in co-op online with one other friend. So I might have to find a friend to do that with. I've heard of the acclaim of the old games, but I'm somebody who can't really play old games. I need my quality of life. I need my 20 years of like advancements for me to feel comfortable playing the game. And I think this one, since it's being that spiritual successor, it's not a remake of those old games. It's its new thing, but in a way, it's like a modern version of those games. Hopefully, I think that's what they're going for. So maybe it's a way for me to experience it.
Yeah, try it out. See if you like it.
Next up is Pikmin 4. If you aren't familiar with this series, these are action-adventure puzzle RTS games where you pluck the plant-like Pikmin out of the ground and then later throw them at objects to solve puzzles. In this one, you play as the newest recruit to the Rescue Corps and can customize your character for the first time in the series. At the start of the game, your ship crash lands on a mysterious planet and you have to explore it to rescue missing crew members and find materials to fix your ship. Okay, so one new addition to Pikmin 4 is that you now also have a two-legged rescue pup named Ochi that can help you along the way. He acts kind of like a bigger Pikmin, so he can fight enemies and carry bigger objects and can even bash through walls. And you can ride him around like a little horse.
A little two-legged horse.
And all your Pikmin kind of like jump on the sides of him.
Oh, fun.
And he has a skill tree so you can upgrade him to make him even better. So I don't know why you even need the Pikmin. You should just get a whole swarm of Ochis.
Well, I guess it maybe it's just a little easier. Like, oh, I don't have enough Pikmin for this, but I have Ochi.
Yeah. And I suppose Pikmin are expendable. You can just send waves and waves of at the enemy to die, because you can just pluck more right out of the ground.
But Ochi doesn't die, does he?
As far as I know, well, who knows? It could be a surprise Nintendo ending.
Oh, yeah, if Ochi dies, 0 out of 10 game. Sorry. How could you do this to us?
All right, well, what's also new to the game are night expeditions. Ooh. So I don't know if you knew this, but the previous games were like timed. So they had a day-night cycle, and you had to do all your business during the day, and when night came, you had to like run back to your ship because you couldn't go out at night.
Okay.
And the reason, I don't know if it was the same for the previous games, but in this one, the wildlife on the planet go into like a frenzy when night comes. I don't know the biological reason for that.
It's dark now. I must go crazy.
But I guess you're brave enough, or maybe because you're the newest member, they're willing to risk you.
Yeah.
You can shoot yourself out and do night expeditions where you can find the new glow Pikmin, which you can use to distract enemies from, I forget what they called it, but there's like this mushroom that the frenzied animals attack, and you protect it and you can gather glow sap, which I guess it might be a rare material that you use to upgrade items or make things.
Spicing up the formula.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things people wanted to do is like, why can't we go out at night? And they're like, well, here you go.
Here you go. There will be consequences.
In addition to these glow Pikmin, there's another new Pikmin, the ice Pikmin. This one can freeze water so others can walk across it. And so kind of pursuant to that, I don't know if you could tell, but each Pikmin has like a different strength. So like red ones are resistant to fire. The flying ones can fly.
Oh, okay.
and so on and so forth. I think there appear to be 9 Pikmin types total in this one. So you basically have to know what they all can do, and you use your wits to like mix and match them to solve puzzles, basically.
Okay.
Speaking of puzzles to solve, there are caves that you can explore, and when you jump down in there, it pauses the day-night cycle. And from what I got from it is they looked like these more focused puzzle areas where you kind of move room to room, and they're not as open as the top world.
Okay.
I don't know if underground is the new thing for Nintendo, because didn't Legend of Zelda have that? Or Tears of the Kingdom, it has an underground area now.
I kind of remember something like that, but I can't say for sure. I haven't played it yet.
Okay, so I looked it up, and they do have an underground area called the Depths.
All right.
I don't know if there's any evidence that they're connected with these Pikmin areas.
I have my doubts.
But yeah, these are just more self-contained areas to really test your puzzle solving, I believe.
That sounds more my speed, to be honest.
Yeah. And for all you cool cats out there.
Oh, God.
And for everybody out there that likes multiplayer, the game features limited co-op, where player 2 can use a targeting reticle to throw stones or items to help player 1 while they're exploring. This seems to work similar to, I think it was Super Mario Galaxy that had something like that, where player 2 was a little reticle that threw stars.
Right.
This will be disappointing for people that played Pikmin 3 Deluxe, because that had full campaign co-op, and I think people were wanting something similar to that, but co-op has returned, but in a disappointing form, I would say.
Yeah. Well, first hearing it, I thought of more of like a disparaging, like, oh, it's kind of like the little sibling controller where like you give them and it's not important. But thinking about how maybe like you're a parent and you want to play with your kid, but they're not old enough to really play fully yet. So it's a way for you to play with your kid. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems kind of nice. It's an option.
Maybe there'll be a Pikmin 4 Deluxe, and that will add co-op.
Yeah,
so who knows? But if you like competitive, there's a versus mode called Dandori Battles, where you try to collect more objects than your opponent within a time limit to win.
I do not like competitive. So I will pass, thank you.
Yeah, this does not sound interesting to me. I think from the trailer, what I got from it is maybe during the story, it will give you one of those battles where you face an AI to kind of introduce you to the mode. And then beyond that, you do it against other people. I don't know, maybe it'll be popular. I don't see the interest in it. I don't have any interest in it personally.
Yeah. Which
kind of extends to Pikmin 4. I think like, I get what these games are trying to do. They're kind of like RTS lights, where you have an actual avatar that you move around the world. But I think Overlord did the similar concept, and I couldn't even stick with that one. And that one you played as basically Sauron. So I don't know if I'll be that engaged being a little astronaut walking around.
Yeah, Pikmin was always one of those games where it's like, I know that it exists, but I never really got the attention around it. But I'm sure it definitely seems to have a fan base. So it's very exciting for people who are waiting for it. So.
Yeah. If you like Pikmin, this is more Pikmin.
Yep. Just what you asked for.
Next up is Remnant 2. This is the sequel to 2019's Remnant from the Ashes. And if you haven't played that, it's basically Dark Souls with guns. Remnant 2 takes place several decades after the first game and sees the return of the Root, an evil, plant-like, interdimensional entity. Players will once again need to travel through portals to different worlds to stop the Root and save the last of humanity. Okay, so what's new in Remnant 2? So first up, boss battles have been improved. A common complaint from the first game was an over-reliance on enemy waves, so they've focused more on boss mechanics in different phases. So hopefully boss fights will be more about fighting the big enemy in front of you.
Okay. I can get down with that.
There will also be new biomes to explore. The one I saw was a spaceship zone that looked inspired by the Aliens franchise or like the Prometheus movie.
Okay.
So it has a lot of that H.R. Geiger, his distinctive weird spiral art style. And then I think there might be some like alien enemies, some real creatures.
Real creatures. Okay.
They've also rebalanced weapons and added new ones. And as part of that, they've improved melee to make it more competitive with ranged builds. I think in the first game, you could play melee, but it just was always like worse than just playing a ranged build.
Yeah, I started watching a video recently about someone trying to go through the entire game with melee. I didn't finish the video because I got bored, which isn't their problem, but it's my own problem.
So bad.
The narration wasn't really my style, but so I think they did end up doing it. It's just the fact that someone was able to make a video about can this be done in melee just speaks to the fact that it was more difficult to do that. So improved melee sounds nice. I like melee.
Yeah, I'm not sure how. Like, I guess the premise is Dark Souls with guns, but it is nice to have that variety there, because I'm sure there will be people that want to do it. And maybe, like, a second playthrough or something to do something different.
Right. Different
just to have an option. All right, they've also removed set bonuses from armor, so now you can wear whatever you want, whatever looks good. And since they removed those set bonuses, they kind of replaced them with the expanded archetype system. So each class will have their own skills, traits, and perks. And you can even multi-class. You can be like one class and have a subclass. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty because it's very complicated, the trait system, but the key takeaway is that there will be more class diversity. I think in the first one, the classes didn't feel all that different from each other, but in this one, like a gunslinger will definitely feel different than like a handler. Okay. They will each have different strengths, and you'll feel that. Speaking of classes, there are 5 to choose from. There's a DPS-focused gunslinger. There's the support-focused handler, which I think is interesting because they have a dog companion.
That one's mine. That's my class.
You have a pet that can follow you around. That's cool. And important to people like you, the dog cannot die.
It is important to me. If it died, 0 out of 10, bad game.
They can get knocked down, like because they can take aggro, they can kind of tank for you. So they can get knocked down, but you can go pick them up afterwards.
Right.
Presumably, though, if you also die and the screen goes black, I assume they die in that instant.
Right, but it's not like you have to go find a new dog. You just both respawn together.
Yeah. It doesn't die alone.
Oh, God.
Okay. Beyond that, there's the tanky challenger class. There's a healing focused medic class. And then as of the recording of this video, the 5th class has not been revealed, but there is a 5th class.
Okay.
That much we know.
Sounds like a good mix of classes. Definitely some interesting things I see in each of those. But let's be honest, I'm probably going to play the handler or want to play that one. So
yeah,
because dog.
I do wonder if maybe the best build is to be anything else and then subclass as a dog handler, because then you would always have a pet,
right?
I think.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
If everybody has a pet and the pet takes aggro, like that helps a lot in these Souls games when you could just have something not attack you. like
Yeah.
attack this dog.
Yeah, that is actually one thing that I was thinking about, because it depends on how the multiclassing works and what abilities you get. But I was like, you could be a gunslinger, so you have that DPS focus, but then multiclass into handler, so you have the dog, or the opposite, where you start out as support, but then can go more damage based with a gunslinger. So I think it's a lot of you can do a lot of testing, see what works for you.
Yeah, we'll see. I think one of the good parts of Souls likes is always trying to make an overpowered build anyway, so I don't think it's necessarily bad.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
All right, now let's talk about randomization. If you didn't play the first game, it did have some procedural generation when it had randomized items, events, and some bosses were even random. But Remnant 2 will go even further beyond.
Oh god.
So the developers said they don't want players to experience the same thing twice, so each playthrough will have randomized worlds, bosses, tile sets, enemies, events, and even storylines. So I was unsure how storylines worked.
Yeah.
But basically they have multiple pre-scripted ones that they've already kind of planned out, and it will randomly choose one for that area that you go into. The storyline itself it'll have different NPCs, it'll have different dialogue, and even different boss to it. So it's really interesting because you could potentially, maybe the final boss is the same at the end of the game, but you could potentially play the same game as somebody else, but also not see the same thing in the entirety of the game.
Yeah.
It's like playing two different games from somebody. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool idea. I'd like to see it in action.
Yeah.
My reservations are, I don't know how coherent like a storyline can be if it's kind of randomized. And also, like, I think of Souls games that I've played, and there are good bosses and there are bad bosses, right? Some are better than others. And I wonder how bad it will feel if you just get the random roll and you get pinwheels throughout your entire game. They're all bad bosses, and then somebody else gets all like the highlights.
Right.
And they're like, this game was so great. And you're like, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I guess RNG is that double-edged sword.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I am interested to see it in action, but at the same time, it's like the fact that I feel like I could miss out on something makes me a little unhappy. But that's what multiple playthroughs are for, if you have the time for it. So
yeah, multiple playthroughs. I think the wiki is going to be
a
nightmare to fill out. It's going to be a nightmare to fill out on this game. I don't know if it'll be present in the second game, but in the first one, I believe after you beat the campaign, it opened like in an adventure mode or something. I forget what it called it, where it would kind of be short form. So it didn't have the big arcing story behind it, and you could kind of just play through content. And that would be a way to like try to get those bosses that maybe you missed.
Okay.
So maybe the second one will have something like that, where you can cut out the fat and just try to see what you missed.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay, and the last thing that I want to mention is that even though this is a Souls-like, and sometimes when that's true, they try to copy Dark Souls like weird esoteric co-op system, but in this one, it's very straightforward. If you want to play with your friends, you just join a lobby together and you play together.
Nice.
So it's straightforward. It's up to 3 players in co-op, and it does not have PvP, so you won't get invaded or anything like that.
Okay.
It's just straight playing together.
That sounds nice. I hate being invaded, and we did have a couple times playing Dark Souls where, can you see my summon sign? No, I don't see your summon sign.
Yeah. But the point is, a lobby system negates all of that, and you just play together.
Yeah.
So I'm happy.
No problems.
Next up is The Expanse, a Telltale series. This is a narrative adventure game like The Walking Dead or The Wolf Among Us, where you walk around, you talk to people, you pick up items, you solve puzzles, and you make difficult moral choices that your crew members will remember. This game is based off the popular sci-fi show The Expanse, in which humanity has colonized the solar system. You play as Kamina Drummer, an executive officer aboard the Artemis, a scavenging ship, and you must manage the tense relationships of your crew and make tough decisions as you scavenge wrecked ships and battle against space pirates. Okay, before we begin, if you're confused because you thought Telltale Games shut down in 2018, that is true, that did happen, but a different company called LCG Entertainment acquired the rights to some of their IP, and more importantly their branding, and now they are releasing similar narrative-focused games under the Telltale Games name. So it's a new Telltale Games, but with hopefully better management. So this is the first new game being released by their new studio, and it's being co-developed by Deck 9, the developers of Life is Strange True Colors, which is another narrative-focused game studio. So hopefully they get off on the right foot.
Yeah, I remember vaguely hearing about Telltale Games shutting down a few years ago. So I don't know, it's pretty exciting to see them come back. They were a pretty big name in these narrative-focused games, so hopefully it's a good entry.
Yeah, I like their games, so I'm happy that they're back.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's talk about the game. It takes place before the events of the show that it's based on, and the developers say they made it to be a perfect on-ramp for people unfamiliar with The Expanse, which is great, because I have not watched The Expanse. But I do like science fiction, so I did plan to eventually watch it. And so now, when I eventually get around to that, I'll be able to play this game and then watch the series right after.
Yeah.
Be perfect.
Bam, bam. Get it done.
Bam, bam. And for fans of the show, you might be excited to hear that actress Kara G reprises her role from the show and voices Kamina Drummer, who you play as.
That's nice. A little bit of pedigree there.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it. If you've heard her voice from the show, it does sound weird. It's this weird affectation or accent that she's doing. I did think it was weird at first, but I did look it up, and what she's doing is her character in the fiction, English is not their first language. Their first language is some made-up space language. I don't know what it is. So it's like a sci-fi accent. Like somebody that was born in space, they would have an unfamiliar accent to us, but I guess that's what she chose to go with. And I think if she's pulling it off, if the accent works, I think that's pretty impressive from an acting perspective.
Yeah. To be fair, I remember from the trailer, like you just get kind of snippets of things that she said, so it's all kind of out of context. So it sounds a little stilted, a little odd, but maybe in context it sounds a lot more natural.
Yeah, what I will say is she's very popular. So when you try to look up, when you try to Google, why does she sound so weird? Like all those threads are downloaded, so you have to find it at the bottom. Okay, now all the previous games were developed in the Telltale tool, which was their proprietary engine. But since this is kind of a new Telltale games, they're developing in a new engine. It's Unreal Engine. So it will be a graphical update, I think, comparison to their older games, and will have improved gameplay. So since this is a space game, they talked about all this animation capture and stuff they did for moving through 0G. So I think it's nice. It might have more it might feel more natural, the movement in the game. I know since the old games were kind of adventure game focused, it could be stilted to like move around. But new engine, it should feel better to play. And I do think it looks better.
Yeah.
But it still maintains kind of like that stylistic thing that they have.
Yeah.
Now, not everything has changed. They are still going to release the game as episodic. So there will be 5 episodes for the main game, and then they have an additional DLC episode planned later. But they promised to do stuff differently this time. I know they've had to delay episodes in the past, which upset people. But the way that the format is this time, they're developing the full game, and you also cannot buy it separately. You have to buy the entire package at once. But because it's all developed beforehand, they can guarantee each new episode is released 2 weeks after the previous. Now, then why do they have to release it that way? Well, they don't. They're doing it for artistic reasons. They want it to be episodic, so you treat it like a show, where you kind of, in between the 2 weeks, you kind of talk to your friends about, what happened and what's going to happen next. Kind of get that conversation going.
Right.
I don't know that I like that.
Yeah. Like, I can understand the decision, and it's kind of like a callback to the way that these games had been released before.
Right.
But you and I probably just wait until it's all out and then play it. Like, we wouldn't do the per week thing.
Well, the thing is, the show's finished now, so you can just watch the whole show at once. So I might just wait until the game's all out. And then I could buy it and play that all at once.
Yeah.
So, but I think I will play this, definitely. I do like Telltale games. I think I have some others in the backlog, so we'll see. We'll see when I get to it. But by then it'll probably be finished. So
right.
Next up is Disney's Illusion Island. This is a 2D platformer starring Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy. You can play it solo or with up to 4 players in co-op. The setup is that Mickey and his friends are tricked into heading to Illusion Island and are asked by the inhabitants to gather the 3 tomes of knowledge and save the land. Okay, so what I want to say about this game is that it's inspired by Metroidvanias, but it's focused on platforming. So it actually doesn't have combat, although it does have boss battles. So I don't know exactly how that works. Maybe you just platform around the boss and then hit a button, hurt him, do that 3 times.
I can get down with
something like that.
Because that reminds me of Songbird Symphony. There's no combat in that game, but you have like boss battles where you have to do musical parts. So it seems somewhat similar. I'd be down to play that.
So as far as I know, no musical parts confirmed, but it is a Disney game. So who knows? But yeah, it's as a Metroidvania, you will unlock new abilities, but they'll be focused more about movement, and then that will let you get to new areas and open the map up as you go. You know, Metroidvania. Right. You know how they work. Yeah. Also, important is that you can customize the difficulty for how you like, and you can do it manually per character. So if like we're playing together, I can set myself to have 1 heart so I die really quickly because I'm a pro gamer. And you can have infinite health so you never die.
Yeah, I hate that.
It seems like they've designed it in a way where I think the dev talked about playing with their nieces and nephews, playing with people that are less familiar with games. I think we tried to play like the 2D Mario co-op. Yeah. And that got rough. A bit frustrating. Or like Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
It does, when there's a skill gap there, it creates these difficulties. Yeah. But if you can kind of customize it, maybe you can make that a little smoother.
That sounds nice, so that you aren't the person, me, who is dead 90% of the time and just watching the other person play.
Right. And as part of working together, you have a leapfrog ability where you can help each other jump higher. They have a rope drop, so if somebody's already made it to the top somewhere, they can drop a rope and you just have to climb it.
Nice.
And then there's a heart-giving hug where if you're standing next to each other, you can just press a button and hug each other and give each other an extra heart.
That's nice.
That's very Disney.
That's very Disney. Goofy should go "Hyuk" when he gives you a hug.
I would lose a heart.
Oh,
it kills me inside.
I die every time.
Now, as part of letting everybody play who they want, the characters have no strength or weaknesses. They're all functionally the same mechanically, but they differentiate them by having different animations. So they're the same but different, which is kind of nice because it's like if one character is better than the others, like it can feel bad when you don't get to play them.
Right.
Okay, so that was what we considered to be the major releases of the month. But now I'm going to try to do some rapid fire honorable mentions. And we're not going to discuss these ones. First up is Gylt. This is a spooky narrative adventure game. It was first released in 2019, but it was exclusive to Google Stadia, which shut down January of this year. So now they're releasing it to other platforms. On release, it did have a mixed reception, so I would wait for reviews on this port. Next up is The Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie. This is a JRPG that released in Japan in 2020, and now an English version is finally being released this month. This nearly 20-year-old franchise is divided into 3 sub-series, and this game is a culmination of those storylines where all the characters come together, kind of like the Avengers movies. For that reason, if you're new to the series, I advise you not to start with this one. Instead, the most common recommendation is to start with the very first one, Trails in the Sky. Just note that these are long games, about 40 to 100 hours each, so if you plan to dive in, I hope you have some vacation time saved up. Next up is Atelier Remake, The Alchemist of Salburg. This is another previously released JRPG coming to the West for the first time. This time, it is a remake of the very first game in this 26-year-old franchise, and you play as failing academy student Marie, who must improve her alchemy skills and pass a special graduation exam in order to graduate. The game will feature updated graphics and added quality of life features, but note that this game is subbed and not dubbed, and has Japanese voiceovers only. Next up is Viewfinder. This is a first-person puzzle game where you use perspective and taking pictures and placing them in the world to solve puzzles. This is a very pretty game and a very cool concept. We actually played the demo for this game on this channel and we both liked it, and I'll put a link somewhere around here where you can go watch it if you want to see more of the game in action. Next up is My Friendly Neighborhood. This is a survival horror game meets Sesame Street. You play as Repairman Gordon, who must solve puzzles and put an end to these kid show puppets who have come to life. We also played the demo for this game. It felt quite a bit like a first-person Resident Evil, and I'll also link that video as well if you'd like to watch it. Next up is Ember Knights. This is a fast-paced action roguelike where you can play with up to 4 players in local and online co-op. You'll build your character in multiple ways as you collect different upgrades and weapons, defeat enemies, dodge attacks, and ultimately stop the mad sorcerer Praxis and his evil hordes. This game has been in early access since last year and has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, so if you're a fan of the genre, this looks like one to check out. Finally, we have Double Dragon Gaiden, Rise of the Dragons. This is a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up with roguelite elements, so it has a dynamic mission structure with random purchasable upgrades at the end of levels. It tells an alternate story set in the classic Double Dragon setting, and you can play it in up to 2-player local co-op. Okay, so that was a lot of games. That's all the ones we have on our list. Now we get to choose which one we're most excited about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick Remnant 2, even though I haven't played the first one. I do like Souls-likes. I am excited for this one, so much so that I think we might end up maybe doing a video on Remnant 1 in anticipation of the release. We'll see what happens there with schedules, but
Yay.
Yeah, it's getting me excited to play the first one, which we already have. We just haven't got around to playing it yet.
Busy.
I'm excited to see the Dog Handler in action, and I'm going to be a gunslinger to do the most DPS. That's what I do.
I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, and I hope you're excited about it too, because you will probably be playing it with me.
Yeah, I think I remember when you first got Remnant for me, or we got it free from Epic or whatever. Like I was like, I don't really know about this game, but being more into Souls like these days and hearing about Remnant 2, I'm definitely interested.
Yeah, I think that was before you played the first Dark Souls, so now you're hooked, kind of.
Yep, a little bit.
And what does Nova pick?
Actually had a really hard time picking one, but I feel like I need to pick Atelier Marie Remake, The Alchemist of Salburg, because I am a huge fan of the Atelier series. This looks like just another great entry. They're just super cozy, relaxing games. The stakes aren't the end of the world. It's like just, I'm, a cute girl and I need to graduate alchemist school. So it's very low stakes, very nice.
And you watch your anime subbed anyway, right? So it's no problem for you that it's all in Japanese.
It's no problem. Let's be fair, I do like a lot of dubbed animes. So that is something where if you are interested in the Atelier series, they stopped doing English dubs in the middle of the Mysterious series. So they're set to like 3 games per series, basically. And they used to do English, but they stopped dubbing them. So now they're Japanese only.
That's a bit of Atelier trivia for you.
I'll talk Atelier any day.
All right, I know nothing about the series, so it sounds good. Good pick.
And because I had such a hard time picking one, I want to give Viewfinder an honorable mention because we played that demo and it is so interesting. Definitely check it out. I really want to play that game, but
yeah, watch our video.
Yeah, watch our video.
All right, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Let us know if you liked our new format. Let us know if we missed any games. And let us know what you're looking forward to the most in July. But that's all we got for you today. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.